Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye fans, to another episode of Punting is Winning, your all-Iowa podcast. We are your hosts. That's JD. I'm Keith. Welcome back. We had a one-week hiatus. Little personal matters for me to take care of. Didn't have quite the time to get a chance to podcast last week, so got a little bit to cover. Luckily, we're in the spring sports, so there's not as much content that's missing, but still a little bit that happened over the last 2 weeks. Also, it started the WNBA season this last weekend, so we can talk a little bit about that. But first, let's cover the question of the week from 2 weeks ago, which was, and we do have our answer now, will the Iowa baseball team win the outright conference title in the regular season? And it is a resounding no. They kind of laid an egg in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, very disappointing.
Dropped from first to third in the conference. Actually dropped from first to third in the conference on the very last day of the conference play. So all they need to do was win one of those games. At least they would have at least had a tie by winning one. If they'd have won two against Oregon, that would have been outright title, but wasn't meant to be.
Right.
Still had a pretty good season. Just like I said, fell a little flat here towards the end of the year. I know there's been some injuries in there that kind of caused some issues, pitching injuries, and some fielders, some very key players that were limited. So, again, not that that's an excuse. Everybody goes through that, but that did cause a little bit of an issue for them.
Yeah. Those things happen to all teams. We're not really making excuses, but they do have time. They have an opportunity to win the Big Ten tournament, at least get through pool play, and they've got a chance that drops it down to 4 teams when pool play's over. Yep. And so they've got an opportunity to, bounce back and get back into the talk of being into the tournament. Although I personally believe that with their RPI where it is and kind of ending the season as badly as they have, they're going to need to probably win the tournament outright to get in. I may be wrong. I hope I am. I hope that they, at least if they make the semifinals or even the finals and don't win, I'd like to see them still at least get a seed. But, with that RPI being as bad as it is, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Well, first, before we really jump into that, let's ask our new question of the week for this week. Pretty simple. Iowa has not had a prolific passing game over the past few years, let's just say. All indications are that the offense has taken some steps forward, and the question I want to know is, do you think Iowa will pass for at least 2,500 yards this season? Simple question, say yes or no. I'm not going to give my answer yet, but I'll see what everybody else has to say.
Yeah, I may save mine too. I'm not gonna stick my neck out this early.
No.
I want to see some more.
Let's finish up our talk on the spring sports here, because I think the softball season's team came to an end as well. I figured I'd let you go ahead and run with that.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We talked about a little bit of it earlier, but softball, they lost in the tournament to Penn State 6-2. Their season now is over. They've already been eliminated. We'll skip over to baseball real quick. Iowa had an opportunity.
Well, just real quick, The format for the softball was a lot different than the baseball. I did not realize it was
single elimination.
And I'm wondering if is it because, well, baseball, there's only Wisconsin's the only team in the conference that doesn't have a baseball team, and
that I know
is
of.
the only team in the conference that doesn't have a softball team. So I don't know how they couldn't have done it the same way, but I don't know. It's completely different on how they did it. I think this is the first time for pool play on the men's side.
Yeah,
that I know of. So
I agree.
I was assuming it was a double elimination, but yeah, once that first game was over and they were out, I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, Yeah, no rebounding from a first game loss. You're done. And that's really truly what a tournament is it should be that way. One loss and you're out. It doesn't matter. It's just the way it is.
That's the NCAA tournament, the basketball tournament. You don't get a second chance there either. So
right. And I've played in tournaments. We've done both.
Congratulations to Michigan for winning the women's softball title.
Yeah.
Preventing at least one of the West Coast teams from winning something this year. They're winning everything else.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah.
We'll skip over to baseball then. They lost to Oregon State in prior, because we've been off for a week. They lost to Oregon State 9-6, 5-1, but then ended up tying 6-6. The reason why they didn't play to a win is because Oregon State had to travel and they needed to get on their plane and they were run out of time. So they just called it at a 6-6 tie. So then the next weekend, this last weekend, Iowa had a chance to right the ship a little bit and get back in. And like we talked about earlier, all I'd do is win one of these games to at least get a tie, and two of them to win the tournament outright, or not the tournament, the regular season outright. And they went in, Oregon came into Iowa City and beat Iowa 10-0, 9-6, and 13-4. So Iowa finished third in the conference. They finished the regular season 32-20-1, and Big Ten play 21-9. They are the third seed, and they open pool play in Omaha. They are the number one seed in Pool C, they're still the number 3 seed overall. But so they play Wednesday at 6:00 versus Rutgers, and then on Friday they would play again against Indiana. And if they would advance out of that pool, then that's Pool C. They would then advance to play the winner of bracket, or Pool C or B actually, on Saturday at 6 p.m. So I know that's I messed that up a little bit.
Which UCLA is the top seed in bracket B for Pool B, and Oregon in Pool A. And I wasn't sure, who was it in Pool D? Is it Michigan?
No, USC.
USC, okay.
Yeah, they finished 4th. So there you go. If Iowa would happen to get out of that pool, they would probably, without a major upset, probably take on UCLA. So one of the teams that tied for first in the conference.
Yeah, they need to put it all together at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There's no
this is it.
mulligans at this point.
Right. Mulligans are over. So we wish them the best of luck. I'm rooting for Rick and the guys down there. Can't think of anything worse than finishing a season like they did, especially when you had so much to play for. I'm disappointed. I know the players are more disappointed than anyone else. All the fans, everybody. I know they worked hard to try to get where they were, and they were riding on top for so long, and to lose it on basically the last game of the season, really disappointing. And nothing more to say.
Big shout out to the fans for showing up too. I mean, there was almost 3,500 people there for that series each day.
Yeah. So we're going to give them something to root for, and wish for, to cheer for.
Fan support was not the issue. That's for sure.
Wow, it is pouring here.
Yeah, it is here too.
We need it. Little tidbit of information about the women's basketball team. They got a commitment from Emily Rodriguez of Central Florida. She's a transfer, a 6-foot guard. And she averaged almost 12 points a game and a little over 5 boards a game. She earned all Big 12 freshman honors, and she shot basically 41% from the floor, 33% from 3, and a nice 75.3% from the free throw line. Here's a tidbit I didn't really think about, but now that I think about it, it makes sense. Did you know that 10 of Iowa's 14 players are sophomores or younger? That's 10 out of 14. And the 4 that aren't are Hannah Stolke, Taylor McCabe, Kylie Feuerbach, and Jada Gyamfi. Those are your 4 that are upperclassmen. I guess they would. Aren't they all seniors? McCabe would be, Stolke would be, Feuerbach is coming back. That was their 5th. This is their 5th year. I would think Gyamfi would probably be a senior too.
I would think so too.
So yeah,
unless she had a redshirt year in there or something that we don't. I don't know how that works.
another tidbit of information that we found out today that Sydney Falter is going to be on the bench as a graduate assistant. So she's going to take a year and maybe 2 if she can get on the staff, play assistant coach role instead of player role. I'm sure she's got some insight. She can help.
That'll be good for her. It'll be good for the team. She's got the familiarity with the team, so
sure.
Yeah, it'll be a good opportunity for her.
Yeah, well, I'm excited.
I didn't realize she was interested in coaching at all. I just assumed she was ready to get on with her career and whatever her graduate degree was in. But hey, like I said, kudos to her if that's what she wants to do and she wants to get into coaching. I think she has the mental acumen to do that, and she's definitely learned from some of the best.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say down the line. She might end up being Iowa's head coach.
Yeah.
She continues down this path of wanting to coach. She might go, other places and learn after here. Or she might be hired on as an actual assistant. Hard to say where her career path may take her. Yeah. But we're excited for her. And we always, of course, she's once a Hawkeye, always a Hawkeye. And, of course, wish her the best.
Nothing really from the men's side either at this point. Everything's pretty quiet right now.
Yeah, which is okay. This is kind of as expected this time of year. So I'm not terribly concerned about, no news is no news at this point.
Yeah. And I know coaches were out evaluating young talent. I think there was a deal in Council Bluffs over the weekend. Quite a few coaches there, quite a few teams playing. I know I saw one picture of Kelvin Sampson was on the sidelines. Fran McCaffrey was there. Ben McCollum was there, and I was like, that's got to be awkward.
Yeah, I saw that same post.
And I think sitting next to Ben McCollum, wasn't that McCaslin? Grant McCaslin from Texas Tech.
They're good friends. I know that. Yeah. So maybe it's a good possibility they're sitting next to each other. Yeah. I see that we did have a basketball player decommit, and that's Shabazz.
Navon Shabazz, yeah. He decommitted, but I think it's still, there's still an option there. I think Iowa's just reevaluating him to see if he fits the new. But I know he decommitted right after Fran offered him. So, maybe there's something there. Listening to what I've read on Hawkeye Nation or On3, I guess it is. Kakert, I think, has a pretty good relationship with the kid's dad, and it's just, I think the kid decommitted because he didn't want to get left out if something came up, and so he's just basically reopened from the sounds of it. Does that mean that he'll come back to Iowa? I don't know. Does that mean Iowa wants him? I don't know. It's there's got to be mutual interest from both parties, and I know there's interest from Navon to play for Iowa because he committed there, but is the interest from Ben McCollum there as well, or has he got his eyes on somebody a little bit better? I don't know.
I don't know either. That's a good question. Well, I guess time will tell. Yeah. You said something earlier about WNBA starting. Were you able to watch the? We're only going to deal with the Fever because I don't care about the rest of the teams. Other than I do want to see how Kate Martin does. Lucy Olson. I will keep an eye on their stats and kind of watch, and especially when they play the Fever, I'll keep a pretty good eye on them. Yeah. But really, when it comes to WNBA, for me, it's Caitlin Clark, and that's 99% of my interest. Did you watch any of the game on Saturday?
I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, I did too. A triple-double start to season. That's nice.
I'm kind of on the fence as to whether she should have been in there for it or not. I get wanting to get that on the books, but you're up by 30 at that point, and there was only about 4 minutes to go, and you brought her back in. I was like, I don't know if I agree with that, because you run a risk of getting her injured, especially when you're playing a team like Chicago, where there's the animosity with some of those players. Now, granted, it's not as much as it was last year because I think some of the players that were on that team are gone now. The Kennedy Clark, Kennedy Carter. Yes, sorry.
She's playing in Mexico.
Yeah, so maybe it's not as big a deal as I'm making it out to be, but I was disappointed last year in the fact that the Sky wanted to get Angel Reese those records with the double doubles and didn't care about the winning record or winning percentage or how the game was going. She basically stat padded. And I kind of felt like bringing her back in with about 4 minutes to go was kind of stat padding, but it is what it is. I'm happy for her. I'm glad she got the triple double and whatnot, but I'm just a little bit on the fence as to whether she should have been back in there or not.
Well, to your point, let me ask you this though. Do you think it was okay to have DeWanna Bonner in there to try to get on the list of points leaders to try to climb another notch late in the game when it was all she needed was 2 points and she ended up getting at the free throw line? But do you think it was good that they really worked hard to try to get her that?
I would say that's okay if we were talking like last game of the season.
Yeah.
But we're talking first game, so it's not like she doesn't have 40 other opportunities to get 2 points.
Yeah, 43 plus, yeah.
And I get it. I think what it came down to is they wanted her to get it at home.
Well, she still has another opportunity on tomorrow night.
Is that a home game too? I thought
that's a home game. They play the first two at home, and then they go to Atlanta on Thursday. So they play Atlanta Tuesday night in Indianapolis. Then they play the Dream again in Atlanta. They play on Saturday, but I don't remember who they play.
Okay.
And it's a
I missed that. I thought the second game was on the road, so I was thinking, okay, I get it. They don't want to get it at home. So there's plenty of opportunities, and like I said, if it would have been the last game of the season, potentially the last game of her career or something, sure, leave her in there. I don't care if it's a 50-point blowout win and she needs 2 points. Sure, you leave her in there. But first game of the year, play the next game at home. Okay, probably not necessary, but it is what it is.
This is exactly kind of what I expected from the Fever on the first game. In fact, I even told the wife, I said, if Indiana does not win this by 20, something's wrong. And they didn't win it by 35. So I was a little under that. But, we talk about Caitlin Clark pretty consistently. She is kind of the bus, the wheels that drive the bus for the WNBA and definitely for Indiana. But,
That's a deep team.
Well, I was going to ask you a question, but I think I already know the answer before I even ask it. But, I think let's go back to this a little bit. The sad part about it is when you open the season, you're still a little rusty. You haven't had a chance to practice as much as you really want to. So you're still learning the new players. And the new players are learning Caitlin, that kind of thing. It's just a process that they have to go through, and eventually by mid-season, you hope that they're there. But there was an awful lot of plays where I thought they had assist opportunities for Caitlin that they didn't make. Okay. There was at least 4 or 5 in the first half where they catch a pass and either be too far under before they got control of it, or it would roll off their hand wrong or anything like that. But
or just absolutely just missed the bunny. There was a lot of times, and the announcers made a comment about it.
Yeah.
How many baskets did they miss within 5 feet?
Right.
And again, you can attribute that to rust or, just lack of playing time at this point. This was happening 15 games into the season. There might be a problem. First game, they probably let it go, but I was thinking to myself, boy, if you guys could hit layups or shots within 5 feet, you'd be ahead of them by 30 at halftime.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. That, by the midseason, they better have this pretty much taken care of. They should know there were some really nice passes that they did make points on. So, there was some cutting that they were getting the balls. I'm sure they weren't expecting them or they wouldn't have gotten them. Some of these newer players who they played with last year, DeWanna Bonner and that, and some of the other girls, they weren't expecting that kind of thing. So they just see Caitlin on film, and until they have practice with her and really have a chance to really start molding together, they're not really, I don't think they maybe they're running the court, but they don't expect to get it because nobody else would ever feed it to them. So they either stop or they just flash to the wing. But the girls that have been there, like Kelsey and Aaliyah and Lexi Hull, they know that Caitlin's going to hit them if they cut under the basket with nothing in front of them. It's going to be a close pass. Players probably, the opposing player is going to have their finger close to it, but there's still going to be a pass that she they have the opportunity to score on. And there's nobody like, I don't think there's anybody in the WNBA that can pass effectively like Caitlin does.
Yeah.
I mean, she's an all around player.
As great as she is, I do want to give some props to some of the other players. That's a fairly complete team this year.
Very good, very good team.
Talent there.
Yes.
Sydney Colston was very, very good, and
she's quick.
I also felt like Natasha Howard was very much a factor in the game. Now,
absolutely
not from the free throw line. She's got to do a little bit of work on the free throws, but it wasn't just Caitlin Clark's passing either. The others made great passes too. Yep. I mean, there were some very, very professional plays. Let's just put it, and I hate to say it that way because they're professionals as it is, but just very smooth looking plays that I saw during that game from people other than Caitlin Clark. And I think that's, you can kind of attribute that to her, as some of the stuff she does can kind of rub off on people. She makes everybody around her better.
Absolutely.
Well.
Yes.
So, that team is going to get better and better and better throughout the year. Mm-hmm. I think their only real competition is probably the Liberty.
Yeah.
And watching them the last quarter before that other game started, mm-hmm. They're good.
Yeah.
They are good.
Yeah.
And they're quick.
Yes.
So I think it's those two teams right there that are the cream of the crop in the league. Granted, I haven't seen all the teams, and I probably won't until they play Indiana. But based on results that I've seen and what little I did see, they are the cream of the crop.
Well, I'm excited to see Sophie Cunningham get in the game. I know she didn't play on Saturday because of ankle tweak, but if she can get in there, I want to see how they interact together with Caitlin and with her. I know she was basically the savior of the preseason game.
Yeah.
And so if she's got the ability to hit some threes and score from under the basket, a few, some shorter shots, it just makes them even more competitive and a more complete of a team. I'm just excited to see her play.
Yep.
I think she was underutilized at where she was at last year.
Yep. I think it's a very, very, very talented team, and they're fun to watch.
Yes.
And I never thought I'd say that about the WNBA.
Yeah, I didn't either. But it's being Iowa fans our whole lives, mm-hmm. when you've got somebody like Caitlin Clark that went to school at Iowa, you have a vested interest in her. You've watched her for 4 years. You've watched her go all the way through the tournament twice to the championship game. And, seems like there's always ups with her. There's never too many downs. She doesn't have rough games too often.
She's so good. You want to make sure you take the time to watch her.
Oh yeah. She's must-watch TV.
It's like Michael Jordan, when Jordan was in his prime and when he was playing, you stopped a lot of things to watch him play. Because you knew that wasn't going to last forever. And you're not going to get generational talents like that every year.
No.
And, I guess from the NBA standpoint, the next best generational talent from MJ was probably either Kobe or LeBron. And you think about the fact that Michael Jordan was back in the late 80s. And here we're at 2025, and we're just talking about two people in between that time frame that even would remotely be considered a generational talent. That's pretty high praise. That's something you've got to. It's like I said, when you see those types of talents, you make sure you watch them. And I think Caitlin Clark's that way.
From what I'm getting from you, would it be safe for me to say that you and I, at this point, feel like Caitlin Clark is the Michael Jordan of the WNBA?
By all accounts, yes.
I would say that as well. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't have anything more on the Fever, and I don't have anything more on anything else, but you have something you want to do, a little fun game you want to play.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much fun it's going to be when I'm done with it, but
I went through, it's been a while back that I did this, and I just kind of redid it today. Kind of wanted to see what trends and things for the football teams in the conference. Now, no offense to Oregon, Washington, USC, or UCLA, but this is not going to include them. simply because this 1 year in the league is not going to give us a lot of background data. These are all teams that have been in the conference for 10 years, and we're using a 10-year average on these, or a 10-year time frame, and I'm using the last 10 years, so 2015 through 2024. That is 10 seasons. So what I did is I put together those 14 teams that were in the conference and calculated wins, losses, win percentage, conference total records, what their best record was, what their worst record was, and I ranked them from worst to best based on overall win percentage, not just on conference, overall win percentage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some stats of a team, and I want you to tell me what team I'm talking about. And then I'll tell you what place they fall in line in the conference from 1 to 14.
But I got to warn the people out there, I do not know any of the stats. Keith did not fill me in on any of this stuff. He just said, we're going to play a game, and he gave me the overview, and I have no idea. I'm going to try to guess just based on being around for the last 10 seasons, but I'm guaranteeing you I'm not going to get them all right.
All right. I'm going to throw you a softball right off the bat.
Okay.
This team's best record was 13-1. I'm okay. Let me preface things. When I'm talking best record, I'm talking best percentage wise, not necessarily how far they went in a season or anything like that. Just best percentage wise overall record.
So the 13-1 team you're going to tell me about is over the last 10 seasons. This is their best season at 13-1.
Their best winning percentage season was 13-1.
Okay.
Their worst was 11-2. They are 76-9 in the conference, 103-16 overall, and 86.5% win percentage. Who am I talking about?
I think I know who you're talking. I think this is Ohio State.
Yes, and they are ranked number 1.
That was a softball.
I'm going to give you a softball. All right, the next team. The next team had a best record of 13-3, a worst record of 7-6. Their conference record was 61-27. Their overall record was 87-36, for a 70.7 win percentage. Who am I talking about?
I'm going to go with Penn State.
That is correct. And they ranked 3rd.
And the only reason I took Penn State was because you said their best record was 13-3, and I'm trying to think of myself, what teams made the playoffs, and it was either them or Michigan, and I'm thinking Penn State. So, yeah.
All right. So the next team, they had a best record of 13-1. Their worst record was 5-7. Their conference record over that time was 55-31. Their overall record was 74-42, and they had a win percentage of 63.8.
I'm going to go with Michigan.
No.
It's not Michigan. Wisconsin?
Wisconsin.
Okay.
And they ranked 5th. The next team had a best record of 9-4, a worst record of 1-11. They had a conference record of 31-55, an overall record of 44-73, for a 37.6 win percentage.
I've got two teams that I'm trying to debate here. I'm going to go with Nebraska.
That would be incorrect.
Okay, I'm going to go with Rutgers. That was my other choice.
That would be incorrect.
Really? Okay. Let me see. Third time's a charm. Maybe Northwestern?
That would be incorrect as well.
Oh, geez. I don't know. Who is it?
That
Michigan
would be
State?
the Purdue Boilermakers.
Oh, Purdue. Okay, yeah. I get that.
All right. So that's 4 teams down, 10 more to go. Okay. The next team had a best record of 11-2. They had a worst record of 2-10. Their conference record is 32-55. Their overall record is 56-64, for a 46.7%.
Indiana.
That would be correct. The next team had a best record of 12-2. They had a worst record of 8-5 was their worst. They had a conference record of 60-28. They have an overall 89-39 win-loss record for a 69.5% win percentage.
Iowa.
That would be your Iowa Hawkeyes, who ranked 4th.
Okay.
The next team, 10-3 was their best record. 2-10 was their worst record. They had a 30-58 win percentage in conference, or 30-58 conference record, a 50-69 overall record, and a 42% win percentage.
Oh boy. What was the very first stat you gave me for this team? The best record.
10-3 was their best record. 2-10 was their worst.
Nebraska.
That would be incorrect.
Michigan State.
That would be incorrect.
I have no idea who's that one.
That would be the Fighting Illini of Illinois.
Okay.
And they ranked 10th. All right. The next team had a best record of 11-2, a worst record of 5-7, a 41-46 conference record, a 67-50 overall record, or a 57.3% win percentage.
Michigan State.
Incorrect.
Maryland.
Incorrect.
I have no idea who that one is.
That would be the boat rowers from up north at Minnesota.
Minnesota.
And they came in 6th.
Okay.
So PJ Fleck has a little bit of clout there that, not a winning conference record, but an overall winning percentage is pretty decent and had some decent season. They're trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
All right. The next team had a best record of 9-4, a worst record of 3-9. They are 31-55 in the conference, 44-69 overall, for a 38.9% win percentage.
I'm going to guess it's a red team, probably Rutgers.
That would be incorrect.
Nebraska.
That would be correct.
Okay. Those two were in my head, and I was trying to figure out which one's which.
All right. This one's probably a softball, too. They had the best record of 15-0, a worst record of 8-5, a conference record of 65-21, an overall win-loss record of 87-30, and a 74.3% win percentage.
Captain Khaki Pants, Michigan Wolverines.
Yes. That would be correct.
Yeah, that one was easy.
All right. The next team, a best record of 12-2. Oh, by the way, Michigan came in 2nd. A best record of 12-2, a worst record of 3-9, a conference record of 41-46, an overall record of 54-55, and a win percentage of 49.5.
I'm going to go with Indiana.
No, you've already guessed Indiana.
Did I already guess Indiana? See, 11-2. Who would have had an 11-2 season?
Uh, 12-2, not 11-2.
12-2. Who would have had a 12-2 season? That would have had to be Michigan State when they win the national or the Big Ten championship over Iowa.
That would be correct.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, 41-46 conference record tied them for with Minnesota on their conference record. But Michigan State did come in 7th with the overall record being lower. This next team, they have a best record of 7-6. Their worst record was 1-11. They are 17-72 in the conference, 35-81 overall for a 30.2% win percentage.
Maryland.
Nope.
Rutgers.
That would be correct.
Okay.
All right. The next team, a best record of 8-5, a worst record of 3-9. They are 24-61 in the conference, 47-67 overall, with a 41.2% win percentage.
I'm guessing that is Maryland.
That is Maryland. The next one, they have a best record of 10-3, a worst record of 1-11. They are 42-45 in the conference, 52-61 overall, for a 46.02 win percentage.
That sounds like Northwestern.
That is Northwestern. So that is all 14 teams, and you got 7 of them correct. So not bad. I mean, it was interesting going through this to see how bad some teams really are. I mean, you think about this. Ohio State has a conference record of 76-9. Rutgers has one of 17-72. That is complete polar opposites of each other.
Oh, well.
But I think the interesting thing was, to me, Iowa is one loss worse than Penn State in conference. And they're really not that far off from being number 2 with Michigan. Because Michigan was 65-21, Iowa was 60-28. And Penn State being 61-27. And overall records, Penn State 87-36, Iowa 89-39. Granted, some, and I took out, when talking worst and best records, I took out the COVID year as being eligible for that part, but I kept them in the overall. So, I mean, obviously some teams had, Michigan had a 2-4 2020 season, so I left that off for their worst record, but I kept it in the overall. So, you're looking at some of these where it's like, oh, okay, well, Penn State, even playing in playoffs, still has 5 less games than Iowa. But part of that is because Iowa played 8 games in 2020 and other teams didn't. Some teams only played 5.
Yeah.
But I thought it was just interesting. And, I look at these going in reverse order from 14 to 1. It's Rutgers, Purdue, Nebraska, Maryland, Illinois, Northwestern, Indiana, Michigan State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. How bad is Nebraska to be 12?
Yeah.
With a 38.9% win percentage.
But if you're a Nebraska fan, nothing matters after 2000. It's all in the 1990s and 80s and 70s. That's all they care about. If they have not played football since the year 2000, and they'll never admit that they did.
Yeah. Ohio State has one less overall loss than Rutgers has total conference wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how you got to have it, because you have to have one that's dominant and one that's poor. I mean, extremely poor. And then everybody else fills in the middle.
As good as bad as Rutgers looks here, you kind of have to think they're on an upward swing, though.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show how bad they've been. And, and I didn't realize that Maryland was as bad as they were. 24-61 since joining the conference. So if you're looking at just overall conference records, they are 13th. Purdue and Nebraska are tied at 31-55. They actually have a better record in conference than Illinois does.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I had forgotten that Illinois, especially because here lately they've been fairly decent, but
Yeah.
I had forgotten from like 15, 16 on up to about 22. Illinois was not very good.
Yeah, they were really bad.
Yeah. And actually, Northwestern had a good couple of seasons in there. Didn't they go to the Big Ten championship game?
2 Big Ten championship appearances.
Yeah. And then, so they've had to have had some really bad seasons to be that far down too. So
last couple were really bad. I think since they got rid of, they had that season under their current coach right after Fitzgerald was let go, and then last year was brutal.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had some good years. They had some, the top of that, like 2015 to 2019, they were on par with middle of the pack conference.
Right. Now, speaking of Northwestern,
overall conference, not the Western half.
Right. Now, Northwestern, are they still going to be playing on that field by the lake, or have they got their field situated that they will be playing in it this year, or still not till 26?
I don't have any idea. I have not heard anything. I have not read anything. I haven't even looked, to be honest.
I thought the last thing
I thought they were supposed to have it ready by this year, but
I thought they were going to play 2 years at that lake, and then they'd be ready to play in 26.
Could be. I didn't pay any attention to what was going on there. Again, not a team that I follow, so
yeah.
But let's be honest. It was something that Northwestern needed. That field that they played on was Texas high school fields are better than that.
Yeah.
Some Iowa high school fields are better than that.
Yeah, I've
not been bigger than that, but they're better.
I've not been in their football field, but I've been in Welsh Ryan Arena
prior to renovations.
And that was a high school gym.
Yeah,
it was pretty brutal.
And from all accounts, from what I understand, from what people told me, Cameron Indoor Stadium is the same way.
Really,
it's just a large high school gym.
Nostalgia,
but it's this nostalgic. Yeah, and it's the atmosphere sets it apart.
Legendary status. Yeah, about like Fog Allen, that kind of thing.
Well, it's just like you've got Carver Hawkeye Arena is a full blown basketball arena, but would you rather play there or would you rather play at Cameron Indoor Stadium?
Yeah, I'd rather play at Cameron.
Yeah, I mean it's just, even though that maybe from a facilities standpoint or overall maybe Carver's a little better or has a little more modern, I don't know, but it's just that ambiance of playing there, and it's just the atmosphere. It just shows to show that the program builds the atmosphere, and I think that's something that as we start to see Ben McCollum bring in his system, his players, that's going to be a part of what happens. Because we saw it when Fran McCaffrey first came in. The atmosphere changed from the dead years, the Licklider years, and the fan enthusiasm was up. The arena was getting filled up. It was just the last 3 or 4 years, as for lack of a better term, Fran fatigue set in, and people just weren't coming. I think that's something that Ben McCollum will be able to remedy pretty quick, is fan interest, because people want to go to the games. I think they just were boycotting because they were just tired of the way it was the same stuff over and over. It's like you look up the definition of insanity as doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that's kind of what was happening with Iowa. It was, well, we're just going to try to outscore you, and we're going to hope to win the conference by outscoring you. Well, it wasn't happening.
Right.
There's some teams that are going to play defense, and you're not going to be able to outscore them. And they're going to
I'm sitting here thinking about Carver Hawkeye Arena, and hopefully, if Ben McCollum can start winning right away, and I'm not talking like winning the Big Ten or anything like that, but I mean winning record, getting to the tournament, doing well in the Big Ten tournament, and making the big tournament, that there can be enough revenue generated that they can start making improvements on Carver, or build a new building, a new arena, something a little more modern, something a little more thought out. I think everybody would like to see that. Of course, that's going to be an extremely expensive building on the campus. So it may take more than 3 or 4 years of good. It may take,
a decade.
It may take, I was thinking 8 to 10 years. Yeah. Of, really getting good.
I know I've heard people talking about, we want a downtown arena. I don't think that's a good idea to me personally. I think
parking.
If you were a professional team, okay, I would get that. But a college team, I like the idea of the college facilities being around each other. The sports complex.
Right.
You've got baseball, you've got football, basketball, wrestling, track, all that stuff's right there. I mean, the only one that's really not is softball.
Softball, yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I'm assuming field hockey's right there too, but I don't know for sure. I've never been to a field hockey game, so I couldn't tell you where they play. But I like the idea of that complex mentality of, if I want to, let's just say, there's a November game and you're playing a Saturday game in Kinnick, and there is a basketball game that evening. I don't have to try to repark somewhere else. I can just walk down to Carver.
Right.
I don't have to go elsewhere. I get some people want it, because it's that allure of, it's a downtown arena, blah, blah, blah. I just don't think that's a good idea when it comes to the college aspect of it. I like the idea of it all being together.
Well, I agree with you 100%. And the thing I think that people look at is, how convenient is it to get to these places, get to the complex, as it were. And right now, this is really easy to get to, I think. There's really not a lot of traffic you have to fight. There's not downtown parking and different things that you have to fight. There's plenty of parking around the complex as it sits. Mm-hmm. And it's convenient because you're just off of the interstate a little bit. There's not much to have to drive all the way downtown. I like it all in that one centralized location. Now, I get softball. I understand it's down by, and it's even easier to get to off the interstate.
Oh, yeah.
But, like you said before, you alluded to the fact, if you're going to watch a Kinnick game at like 1 to 4, and then you've got a basketball game that starts at 6 or 7 or whatever the case may be, you don't have to, get in your car, drive away to somewhere else and pay for another set of parking. You can just park one time, you go to both, and you're done. And then you can just drive home. You're comfortable with where things are. It's convenient for the interstate to drive. That to me just seems like the logical place is just build it somewhere on campus, really close, if they've got room somewhere in that vicinity. But I don't know if that's going to be feasible. They've taken up a lot of the open areas with other buildings and workout facilities.
I wonder if they couldn't excavate just west of Carver and build that up and put something just to the west of there.
Takes up a parking lot.
Well, then you turn
Carver into a
parking lot.
Yeah. There might be a couple of years of inconvenience
I said
there.
Parking ramp, actually.
Yeah.
I think that doing that, because I know they're doing a parking ramp near, right across the road. Was the thing I last read. To me, that makes a lot of sense. I get the tailgating aspect is going to take a bit of a hit there because that's a very popular tailgating spot. But I like the idea of taking what would have been, and just throwing out numbers because these aren't real numbers, but let's say there's 100 parking spots there, now making it 700 parking spots. And, maybe you've got a designated tailgating area outside of that where people can just park and then they can go tailgate. Whatever. I like the ideas of parking ramps because I just think it allows for more parking
in a smaller area.
Yeah. And you can consolidate, and that allows you to build other things elsewhere that you would have normally had to have for a parking lot or a parking area.
Yeah.
It starts to take away that need for the Finkbine commuter lot. Because some of that traffic can go now to the ramps, and I don't know. Again, it would be a detriment to the tailgating scene in a way, but I think you could make it work and do something different and still make the tailgating scene.
There's a lot of smart engineers out there that can come up with something
right.
that, or architects that can come up with something that would work and fit the bill and make things more convenient and easier to get to, and just, and build a new facility.
Yep. So,
I know Carver's not really that old, but it's 40
years.
Yeah.
That's pretty old in
40
structural standpoint. So,
yeah. But
it doesn't feel like it's that old to us because we were there for the opening of it.
Yeah.
And it's been within our lifetime. So it's like, that doesn't feel that long ago, but it truly has.
Yeah, I really regret not going to a game at the field house, but I was never old enough to drive to the games by then. And, our folks worked full-time jobs and didn't have the expendable income to go and watch a basketball game and drive the weekend. And we lived on a farm, so we had other opportunities and things that we needed to get done. And at that point in time, we were livestock in it. And, unless you have a really trusted neighbor.
We had other obligations and other responsibilities.
But I would really like to have seen a game.
We don't have.
Right.
So, well, that's all I've got for today.
I think we'll keep it shorter today.
Yeah. So
that was a fun game too, by the way. That was, I knew I wasn't going to do very well, but I'm 50%. I know it's failing, but
potentially do that with basketball too. Maybe we'll do that with basketball when basketball season starts to get closer. Something.
We've got some time between now and when things start getting interesting again. We maybe have to pull some of the stuff out.
Well, I've got some fun little things that I can pull. So maybe a few little games or something we can play like that. So I'll come up with something.
Yeah, we'll come up with something interesting.
Anyway, if you like the content, please give us a thumbs up. Make sure you like the video. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Doesn't cost you anything.
Please.
If you are unable to catch us on YouTube, catch us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I do a lot of my podcast listening too in the truck when I'm driving someplace. So that's a good time to jump on Spotify and listen to us. You can't and you don't have to look at us at that point. Also catch us on Facebook and TikTok, Twitter. All the local media, or all the normal mediums for social media. I don't know that there's any others that we can really jump to, but I know that our TikTok viewership is a little higher than elsewhere. We're getting some pretty good views on that. I think people like the shorter clips too. But it has also driven some traffic our direction. People have watched those 1 minute clips and have started listening to the podcast a little bit more. So that's good. Also, don't forget we have the merch store. If you're interested in any merchandise, all proceeds for that goes to. Yep, very nice. I actually wore mine yesterday, so I didn't have it available today. All those proceeds will go to the Swarm when we have enough to actually make a decent donation. Right now, I think we're sitting at about $30. So I think our $30 wouldn't go very far to anything, but I would like to get that up in the hundreds of dollars so we could donate that. So if you're interested in any merchandise, go out and check it out. Click the QR code at the beginning or the end of this podcast to check out the store. Some good stuff out there. So, all right, that's all I got. We'll wrap it up on that and catch us again. Catch up again next week. We'll have maybe we'll be talking about some Hawkeye baseball winning a Big Ten tournament.
That'd be great.
Who knows? That would be great. So until then, all I got to say is go Hawks.
Go Hawks.